Welcome back to Horn Takes, your Texas football and baseball talk destination. My name is Sean Redfern. It is Wednesday. It is Thanksgiving Eve. Thanksgiving for so many years, Thanksgiving weekend for so many years for Texas Longhorns and Texas A&M Aggies has meant the Lonestar Showdown. It was ripped away from us when the Aggies left back in 2012. It's been gone for 13 years, but now it's back, and it is 100% Aggie Hate Week. The vitriol, the back and forth, the banter on Twitter, and probably every other social media platform this week has been pretty solid. This game used to be, I don't know the particular order of how all this went down. I know in my lifetime, this game was usually on Friday. And before that, I know it was on Thanksgiving. I just don't know for how long. But for most of my life, it's been on Friday. And then for a few years there before the end, it went back to Thanksgiving. Now we're back, and it's going to be on Saturday. I'm good with either of those. We've been to Friday ones, we've been to Thanksgiving ones. I don't think I've ever been to a Saturday one or watched even a Saturday one, but we will this year. So it just feels like Thanksgiving weekend is finally complete again. By the way, our poll we talked about, stuffing versus dressing, 67% of respondents say it's dressing, folks. So if you're on the stuffing side, you're wrong. You're not with the popular vote. I've been married to my lovely wife for many, many years. And many, many years ago, after many years of marriage, finally got her completely converted away from stuffing and onto dressing. So now we don't have to do both. We used to have to do both. Or wherever we were at, someone had to do both. We no longer have to do that. It's a glorious feeling. Today we'll do our Trace Otra games picks for week 14. If y'all pay attention, we were terrible last week. We were 0-3, the first time we've ever gone 0-3. So that sucked. And I'm looking at the games this week and I'm thinking to myself, dang, man, I might go 0-3 again. Because I don't pick easy games. I just think I'm just not going to do that. I could pick 3 games. I could be like, oh, Egg Bowl, Ole Miss. And actually, I've seen some people this week pick Mississippi State in that game. It's not crazy completely, I guess. But if I'm going to make a prediction, I'm not going to, I don't know. I feel like that's a Hail Mary. There's no possible way anybody can legitimately do the mental gymnastics enough to find a reason why Mississippi State should beat Ole Miss in the Egg Bowl. So if you're out there and you pick that, don't be running around bragging how you knew it, because that's just a Hail Mary. I hope this happens. Winging a prayer. There's no data to support that whatsoever. But anyway, we're hoping on Thanksgiving week we do a little better on Trace Otra games. Then we'll do our 4 keys and a prediction for the game against Aggie on Saturday. Check us out on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. Find us if you like podcasts. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts. We're on Apple, iHeart, Spotify. You can also go to horntakespodcast.buzzsprout.com. Find all the audio. But I suggest you go over to YouTube channel, subscribe there, because we do all kinds of video stuff now. I'm going to start doing some live streams. I'm trying to line one up for this week. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it work, but I'm going to try. Try to get those guys from SEC Unfiltered on. I've been on Chris's show back before it was SEC Unfiltered. He's been on this one a few times. I've jumped on their live streams before. Me and Cole Thompson got into it this weekend about Ole Miss. We need to get some closure on that argument. I don't think I've ever had a conversation with Dave Shoemate with voice words, but I've interacted with Dave and his content even back before he was SEC Unfiltered on Twitter. So those are a bunch of cool guys. We're gonna try to get them on. I don't think we're gonna be able to make it work, at least all of them at the same time, but we'll see. We'll see. We'll figure it out. I'm also having to figure out a new streaming platform, so I don't know, man. We'll see. We'll see how it goes on Friday. I'm definitely gonna be drinking and watching football, so I think that's okay. It's Thanksgiving weekend, right? Like I can drink, watch football, and do a live stream all at the same time, right? I think I can. We'll figure it out. We'll see how that goes. By the way, folks, I apologize in advance. I'm a little stopped up, so if I sound a little weird, than I already do, that's why. And I apologize. Please give me some grace on this very stopped up Wednesday. Trace Otra Games picks week 14. And you know what I did, folks? I did not build a Trace Otra game scene, so we won't have one. That's fine. Always something, man. We're 26-10 on the season. Pretty good. Got our asses handed to us last week. 0-3. That set us back pretty good. That's a cut into the average. So we really need to do well this weekend. And as I said, man, I don't pick no easy games. We got number 15 South Carolina against number 12 Clemson. All these games are on Saturday. We didn't do any of the Friday games. It's 11 a.m. kick on ESPN. Clemson 2.5-point favorite. I don't know about that one. Uh, it's definitely a must win for Clemson in terms of playoff appearance. I think Miami has to lose. I've been looking at the tiebreak stuff, and the Big 12 one is nuts. There's a lot of different outcomes in the Big 12. There's one though that's very probable. But anyway, I was looking at the ACC stuff. I believe Miami would have to lose on Saturday to Syracuse for Clemson to make the ACC championship game. But certainly, if Clemson loses this game against South Carolina, it doesn't matter what happens; they're out. So they're winning, maybe in. And then if you're South Carolina, you're not playing for any postseason type stuff. You're probably playing for a better bowl. You're playing to beat your rival. I mean, this is a big rivalry game. It's an in-state deal. Probably pretty similar to this Texas A&M hate. Probably pretty similar to the Egg Bowl. Probably pretty similar to the Iron Bowl. You kind of grow up in those states, and for the most part, you're a fan of one of those teams and you hate the other one. Clemson got that powerful offense. South Carolina, that really good defense. South Carolina is a really hot team right now. They're winners of 5 straight. And they've had one of those kind of like, we're almost there seasons. And they just narrowly missed being like there type of season. Play really close games in losses against Bama and against LSU. And I'm always going to say when we talk about that LSU South Carolina game, South Carolina got absolutely hosed. They, in my mind, that game has a giant asterisk next to it, like all the Houston Astros World Series. Sorry, Astros fans, I had to do it. You probably see Texas Ranger base and a hat right there. So Ranger fan here. Sorry, probably just lost like 3/4 of my subscribers, which will put me down to like 8. So anyway, there's an asterisk by that LSU win because South Carolina got jobbed. There's no two ways around it. Everybody always complains about referees and officiating in college football. There's no person on the planet that would argue against, and actually there was. It was Chris Phillips, formerly of Spurs Up, South Carolina guy, got on the Twitters and was just, man, y'all got to quit complaining about the referees. You can't leave it in the referees' hands. Well, I 100% disagree with Chris on that one. I think Chris probably was trying to not be homerific on that, and he should have because it was terrible. I felt bad. I don't have no like. I don't care about South Carolina at all, like one way or the other. I just don't. Texas hasn't played them enough. Maybe at one point I will care about it, but right now I just don't care. And honestly, I don't really care that much about LSU. I get sick of hearing LSU fans all the time. But other than that, I mean, I don't have like a big hatred towards LSU. But I was like pissed off during that game just because of the umpiring, the refereeing, the officiating. We got a lot off track there. Let's reel it back around. Let's circle back to South Carolina just having a pretty good season, even though they were pretty close in a couple games. They absolutely trashed Aggie a few weeks ago. An Aggie team that kind of flying high, looking like the team to beat in the SEC, and South Carolina just beat the brakes off of them. It's been since 2022 that Clemson's had an opportunity to win 10 games, and that's on the line this Saturday. They win, they got 10 wins. I look at this game and I could see it going both ways, kind of easily. But I think I'm just going to go with something really simple. This is a rivalry game, and we've seen worse South Carolina teams beat better Clemson teams. And I really, really like this SC defense. I think South Carolina gets it done in Clemson. And old Dabo not going to have a great Thanksgiving weekend. I think it's going to be 27-24 South Carolina. And I don't know what they call this game. Someone help me out. Someone tell me. And the next time I talk about it, I'll call it that. Game number 2, we got number 24 K-State at number 18 Iowa State. 6:30 p.m. kick on Fox. Iowa State a 2.5-point favorite. You look at K-State, and K-State was one of the teams in the Big 12 that I thought, them and Utah, I thought really were going to be the teams that kind of rose up out of all that mess in the Big 12 and played for this newer Big 12 championship. And they just got themselves derailed. They're not completely out of it, but at 5-3 in the conference, they would have to win this game, and then like a gazillion other things would have to happen. I don't know what they all are. I'm not even going to attempt to do it. Wouldn't that be a parlay? As a K-State fan, wouldn't that be funny to figure all that out, scrap together like $100 and go drop a parlay on it? I might do that anyway. Because that'd be cool just to hit that. I mean, it'd be double cool if you're a K-State fan. You get into the Big 12 championship game and you nail this massive parlay. Folks, get it. Get it, somebody out there. Iowa State, I think they're in the Big 12 title game with a win unless BYU loses to Houston. And then that sets off this crazy. If BYU loses to Houston, which I don't think it's that likely, but we've seen stranger shit already this year in the Big 12. We saw Texas Tech go on the road and beat an undefeated Iowa State team. And I don't think a lot of people expected that to happen, including all those guys that play for Texas Tech. But if for some reason BYU loses to Houston, it's going to set off this chain reaction of craziness. And then it depends on like a million other games that happen. So I think, realistically, you say Iowa State wins on Saturday, they're probably in. Man, and this game is a coin toss to me. Iowa State started off 7-0, then they lost 2 straight to Tech and Kansas. That just sort of completely derailed them. And then they just kept playing. They kind of got back in it. At one point, it looked like BYU's definitely running away with this thing. And then it looked like Colorado came on strong, and it was going to be BYU and Colorado. Well, then the last 2 weeks happened. BYU loses twice. Colorado loses to Kansas. Kansas turning into that pesky team that cannot seem to do anything for themselves, but can mess up your season if you let them. Then K-State starts 7-1. They lost to BYU earlier in the season, but were really in control. And then they lose a game to Houston. and then they lose a game to Arizona State in consecutive weeks. That Arizona State loss, not a bad loss, but that Houston loss is terrible. If you lose to Houston in the Big 12 this year and you are not good, I mean, you didn't play good football. I don't even know how that's possible. They're that bad. Iowa State much more balanced on offense. K-State's really heavy on the run side. Defensively, they're both similar to me in total defense. Like statistically, they're right around the same thing. But I think Iowa State much better against the pass. They're like one of the top 5 teams in the country against the pass. I think the matchups, offense to opponent defense, both ways, they kind of favor K-State slightly. And ultimately, I think the team that can run the ball the best wins this game. And I think that's K-State. I think they got better weapons. They got better ways to attack you in the running game. Avery Johnson, really athletic quarterback. I like him to make some plays in this game, not with his arm, but with his feet. And I like K-State to go in and just start throwing dirt on the grave of Iowa State. I got K-State 24-20. Next up, we got Oklahoma at LSU, 6 p.m. on ESPN. LSU a 6-point favorite in Death Valley. Man, who would have thought back in August that this game would be a unranked matchup? I don't think a lot of people expected LSU or Oklahoma to be serious SEC contenders when you've got like Alabama, Georgia, Texas, Ole Miss. And I'm just talking back in August. Those were Tennessee. Those were like the 5 teams that everybody talked about across the country, whether you were just talking at the coffee shop, talking at work, or you get paid millions of dollars a year to talk about football. Those were the 5 teams that everybody was talking about. So nobody really, nobody expected Oklahoma or LSU to be there at the end. But I don't think anybody expected them to be this bad. LSU losers of 3 out of their last 4 games. 3 straight SEC games. They desperately need a win on Saturday, I think, just to salvage what's left of this season and maybe Brian Kelly's career there at LSU. Like he's got to get a win. I think if Oklahoma finds a way to go into the Death Valley on Saturday night on Thanksgiving weekend and figures out a way to beat LSU, I don't know if they let Brian Kelly back in the locker room. He might get fired on the field, like on his way up the tunnel. You're Oklahoma, you're coming off this inexplicable win over Bama last week. And obviously you're looking to continue on that momentum, build on that. I mean, if you're Oklahoma and you say, as shitty as this season has been for Oklahoma, if you mess around and beat Alabama and beat LSU 2 straight at the end of the year, you now have a story to talk to recruits about. I mean, it may not be a strong one, but it's certainly better than what almost everybody thought was going to happen over that 2-game stretch. So this is a big game for Oklahoma. I think it's a big game for LSU, even though it doesn't mean anything. I think for both of these programs, where they're at right now, big implications. LSU pretty solid on offense, pretty mediocre on defense. Oklahoma, I think, is still one of the best defenses in the country. I still think they're really good, but they are like terrible on offense. So to me, like who can break that trend? Which team can maybe, if you're LSU, can you find some defense to go along with that offense? If you're Oklahoma, can you do what you did last week against Bama and find some offense to go along with that defense? To me, I think LSU has the best shot of doing that because they're playing at home. And they're playing against a guy, Jackson Arnold, that's been a turnover machine most of this season. I think Oklahoma caught Bama napping with the QB run game. I don't think I mean, it looked like Vince Young. I'm not saying he's fast and elusive like Vince Young. I'm just saying, like, the number of designed carries they had for Jackson. I mean, they literally sat down and built a game plan around Jackson Arnold carrying the ball. And Alabama just wasn't ready for it. A lot like LSU wasn't ready for it when Marcel Reed came in against them in the second half when they were playing A&M on the road. They got caught napping. I don't think they're going to catch LSU napping. I think LSU gets this one done. I think that Sooner magic, that magical offense we saw against Alabama, I think that somehow is gone. I think you're going to see some turnovers. I think LSU wins this one pretty easily. I got LSU 30, Oklahoma 17. We'll see what happens. I could be wrong. Lone Star Showdown. 4 keys and a prediction for the Aggie game. Listen, this one kicks 6:30 p.m. ABC, ESPN Plus. Texas a 5-point favorite now. I've seen it be anywhere from, and I think it started out at like 7 or 7.5. So obviously it's moved quite a bit. A lot of people will go, well, what's that mean? It just means a lot of people were betting on Texas and they want to get some money on the Aggie side. Or excuse me, they're voting on the betting on the Aggies. They want to get some money on the Texas. I don't know what the hell it means. It means they're trying to even up money. Vegas pays the winners with the losers and takes their little percentage. That's how betting works. So the whole betting line is not like this is who we think's going to win. It's this is who we think the public thinks is going to win and by this much, and how do we get even money on either side? Excuse me. Last played in 2011 in College Station. Man, the back and forth between the schools has been building and building and building, and everybody's wanting to know when they're going to play, and both sides saying the other team's scared and da 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 da. Sorry, folks. Runny nose. But all that really came to a crescendo when it was announced that Texas would be joining the SEC. The Aggies lost their minds. Really pissed at the SEC. Felt like the SEC stabbed them in the back. Felt like they had this gentleman's agreement that Texas would never be in the SEC. I have no idea if any of that's true. But I know that's what the Aggies thought. And I know they were upset. Texas holds a commanding 76-37-5 record in this series. They were winners of of 9 of the last 12, going back to 2000. Last time A&M won this game in College Station was in 2007. This is a much anticipated renewal for both of these fan bases, and I think for college football. Like I said earlier, you grew up in Texas, and there's a lot of schools in Texas, so this isn't probably as true in Texas as it is in maybe Alabama and South Carolina. But I think the majority of people in Texas grew up either Texas fans or they grew up A&M fans. And they don't like each other, and they never have. So for the fan bases, this is exciting. We want to see this go. Bad blood aside, folks, there is a berth for the SEC title game at stake on Saturday. Something A&M has never done in their 13-year history in the SEC. Then you flip it around on Texas. They're trying to do it in year 1 in the SEC. And then for A&M, it's their opportunity to keep their playoff hopes alive. A&M loses Saturday, they're out of it. Texas loses Saturday, you lose some bragging rights. You got to deal with the Aggies at work on Monday. You gotta see them whooping and the milk jug guys like dancing real weird and like just doing weird stuff. You gotta deal with all that, but you're not out of the playoff. So there's a lot on the line for both of these teams, just outside of, hey, it's bragging rights and we haven't played in 13. I mean, this is like an explosion of, I don't even know what it's an explosion of. It's like the perfect combination of every possible like metric or circumstance that you could possibly imagine surrounding this game. Hadn't played in 13 years. Heated rivalry before that. SEC title crap on the line. Playoff stuff on the line. I mean, it just doesn't, it does not get any better than that. Anywhere. You can't. There was a time where this game was just going to be a game where they played and then they played again next week in the SEC championship game. Like 3 weeks ago, that was a possibility, a pretty probable one looking at schedules. So this is a big deal. That's why the ticket is so expensive. It's the highest. I don't know how they figure all this stuff, but they say it's the most expensive ticket ever for a college football game. So it's going to be nuts at Kyle Field on Saturday. Man, like half of me wants to go, which I'm not. We're not going. Half of me really wants to go and be there. The other half is just like, I don't know if I want to be around that many Aggies. I mean, I think it could get nasty. I think Texas and A&M fans have always disliked each other, and there's probably been some uncouth things said between both fan bases, but I don't think there's ever been like physical stuff. There might be physical stuff this weekend. I hope not. It would be a shame. Fort Keys, number one, you got to stop the run if you're Texas. Aggie's one of the best teams in the country on the ground. They average 208 yards a game. Running the football is the catalyst for that offense. Those guys are going to get downhill. They're going to run a lot of power schemes with their backs. They're going to utilize Marcel Reed to get the ball on the perimeter in the QB option game. They're really big up front, so they can move some bodies around. If Texas can take that away, and they probably won't consistently take that away, or rather, they won't completely take that away. But if they can take that away enough and make Aggie kind of one-dimensional, PK can start cutting that pass rush loose. And Reed, he's a good player, but he's a freshman. And you can see watching him play, he just doesn't. And nobody deals with pressure well. Like very few people handle pressure. I want to make sure I say that every time we start talking about pressure, because I think people get really hypercritical about it. And yes, I said hypercritical. I'm not talking. I don't mean hypocritical. People get hypercritical about quarterbacks and how they deal with pressure, but he really looks antsy to me. Like he does not like it at all, and he shouldn't. He's not used to seeing it all the time. He hasn't been doing it for 2 or 3 years. But you can't really cut it loose like that if you're PK and that Texas defense, if there's still that threat to run the football. Stopping the run is going to be really key for the Texas defense. Number two key, you got to win the turnover battle in this game. Texas has been unacceptably careless with the football in SEC play. They put the ball on the ground 6 times last week against Kentucky. They only lost 2 of them. They had 4 turnovers against Georgia. They have not had a single SEC game without a turnover. And they've had 2 or more in 5 of their 7 SEC games. So, not good. This Aggie defense, not known for taking the ball away. They only got 15 this season. So we talked about this coming into the Georgia game. Don't let something that is not a strength of the other team suddenly become a strength because you won't protect the football. Flip it around, this Texas defense, one of the best in the country, taking the ball away. They have 24 takeaways this season. And that Aggie offense, pretty good. 11 turnovers all season. It's top 30 in the country. Texas coming in with a +7 turnover margin, Aggie with +4. So both teams are in the plus. Texas a little better. To me, loose balls, errant throws are going to be absolute gold in this game. If you're Texas, you do not want to be the one dropping the ball. You don't want to be the one with errant throws. You want to be the one picking up the gold. Let Texas A&M do all that stuff. You protect the football. That's going to be a big deal in this game. I think a lot of people figure this is going to be a close game. Anytime you're in a close game, turnovers are huge. Key number 3 for Texas, run the football consistently and get downhill. Every game where this Texas offense has struggled in 2024 has been a game where Steve Sarkisian has just kind of abandoned the run game for lengthy parts of the game. Georgia, Arkansas, Vanderbilt to a certain extent. He'll just go these stretches where he he just doesn't want to call running plays. Texas coming off a 250-yard rushing performance against a really good Kentucky rush defense. They're really similar statistically to this A&M rush defense. And if you guys saw my after action review, saw the videos of this offensive line and what they did in the running game, man, they absolutely plowed some big ass holes open. Like that stuff almost made me cry. That stuff looked like old school Texas football back in the Ricky Williams days. Just enormous freaking holes. Saturday night is going to be the most hostile environment that Texas has played in at least over a year, and maybe ever. Just in terms of crowd noise. So the O-line is going to be at a disadvantage in pass protection. Communication is going to be difficult between themselves, between the quarterback and them, between the running back and the offensive line when you talk about changing coverage or changing protections and things like that. Anything that has to be audibly communicated is going to be a challenge for at least part of the game. I think Texas comes out and scores a bunch of points early. It's probably not as bad the rest of the way in. But if this game is close, as long as it's close, communication is going to be a huge problem. I don't know how Texas audibilizes a snap. I know they clap. Maybe the center says something. I don't know. If the center is saying something, those tackles probably going to have a rough time hearing that. They're probably going to have to be looking in at the ball, which puts them at a disadvantage. They're not looking at the guy in front of them. They're not looking at the different pressure packages. There's a lot of stuff that goes into and makes this a big advantage for the Aggie defense. But Texas can take pressure off that offensive line, and they can take pressure off of Quinn Ewers. by keeping that Aggie defense guessing, keeping them off balance, just sticking with the running game, successful or not. You got to stick with the running game. If Texas gets into a long stretch or several long stretches where they just refuse to attempt rushing attempts, this Aggie defense is going to pin their ears back and they're going to get after Quinn Ewers and they're going to disrupt Quinn Ewers. And we've seen it. Quinn Ewers is not his best Quinn Ewers with all that going on. So they're going to have to run the ball consistently. And I think against this group, you want to attack the line of scrimmage really quickly. Like I said it on the show the other day. I don't like the sideways stuff. I hate it even more in this game. This is a big, athletic Texas A&M front. I don't know how quick they are. I don't know how speedy the linebackers are. I mean, they're certainly not slow. It may not. It's probably not the most athletic group though they've played, but they're big, and it is really hard to maintain blocks when running backs are running sideways. It's too long. It just takes too long to get to the line of scrimmage and to get past all that mess. So I think if it's me, I'm putting hats on hats. I'm running some power stuff like we showed on Monday, and we're getting up the field. I think you do that. This offensive line is good for 4, 5, 6 yards of carry. One thing they absolutely cannot afford is to get behind the chains because they're trying to run sideways or they're getting holding calls. You know, they're getting tackles for loss because they're running sideways. They're getting holding calls because they're trying to run sideways, and those guys just can't maintain the blocks that long. Texas gonna have to stick to the run and get it up and down, north and south, up and down the field. I think they do that. Keep Texas A&M off balance on defense. I think this is a game Quinn Ewers can shine in. That Texas A&M defense, that secondary, pretty susceptible to big plays down the field. Key number 4, you got to win third down. Texas offense, top 30 in the country, converting third downs, just shy of 45%. The Aggie defense, top 30 in the country on third down, only allowing conversions a tick over 33% of the time. Texas defense, top 10 in the country, allowing conversions less than 30% of the time. And then this Aggie offense, they're top 25 in the country. They convert a tick over 45% of the time. So somewhere along the line, those trends are going to break. None of them match up. And I think whoever breaks those trends, enough of those trends, the majority of those trends, whoever does that, really good chance to win this football game. A prediction on the Lone Star Showdown. Kyle Field absolutely going to be rocking. We've already talked about it. This is no doubt one of the loudest venues in college football. The Aggies, Texas fans will mess with the Texas Aggies about that crap. The Texas A&M Aggies, there's no such thing as a Texas Aggie. Texas fans will mess with them about that and troll the shit out of them, but every Texas fan knows Kyle Field's it's a cult, man. It's a bunch of nuts people worshiping a dog that got milkmen that lead their cheers. That place holds 110, right around 110,000. It's huge. It looks like a giant tackle box, but it is huge. So it's one of the loudest places to play, and it's probably going to be historically loud on Saturday night. It's like not up for debate that this is going to make a difference in the game. Now, let me back up. It could be a difference in the game. Whether it is, we'll find out. To me, I think a much bigger factor on how successful Aggie is Marcel Reed. We talked about this QB centric Colin Klein offense. I think Marcel Reed's going to have to play the game of his life. He's going to have like career passing yards, career running yard. Like it's going to have to be a gym for A&M to win this game. So the crowd noise could be a factor, but like if you level it up with a lot of people are talking this up. Oh, the crowd, man, the 12th man, it's going to be crazy. They're going to win because of the 12. I just Texas has played in big places. This Texas team under Steve Sarkisian has played in big games. They've played in massive stadiums with loud people. I just do not think it's going to make that big of a difference. It's not like they haven't been there before. I think the guy that's going to catch every snap basically for Texas A&M, that's the guy that's going to make the difference one way or the other. Much more so than the crowd noise anyway. Football games, man, they're almost exclusively won in the trenches. But I think this is one where controlling the line of scrimmage could be like the most noteworthy factor in this game. To me, it's like an attitude game. If you're Texas, you want to go in there and say we're bigger, we're stronger, we're quicker, we're faster, we're meaner. We're just simply better than you, Texas A&M, on both sides of the line of scrimmage. And I think whichever teams, trench warfare specialists, whichever guys, whichever groups sort of embody that type of attitude the most on Saturday night, that's that's going to be the team that wins. And I think if one team can consistently do that on both sides of the ball, this game will get out of hand. And I mean, it could happen either way. I think Texas's offensive line is better. I think their defensive line is better, and I think it has more quality depth. I think they can put more bodies in and out of that game and be really effective than Texas A&M can. One of these fan bases is going to be really heartbroken about 10 p.m. on Saturday night, and the other one's going to be elated. For Aggie, it would mean welcome in Texas to the SEC. They keep putting welcome to the SEC. We lost to Georgia. Oh, welcome to the SEC. That was the weirdest shit ever. Like Aggie fans bragged more about Georgia's win over Texas than Georgia fans did. And I'm not even making that up. I saw more welcome to the SECs from Aggie fans than I've ever seen in my life. Aggie wins that game. Maybe it's a new era. Maybe it's something different than what we've seen in this game for so long. Maybe it's not a Texas dominates this thing over and over and over again like they have in the past. And then I think from the Texas side, it's catching back up and meeting up with your little brother and like kicking his ass for old time's sake. So make no mistake, somebody's going to be real happy and somebody's going to be real sad. I think this Texas team is built for moments like this. We're year 4 under Sark, year 3 with your starting quarterback. You've got a stifling defense, and defense travels. This program has played in big, big games the last 2 seasons. It knows how to prepare for big games. If you're Texas A&M, you're in year one of the Elko era. I think this team's talented, especially defensively. They're starting a freshman quarterback, and what a lot of people are saying is the biggest Texas A&M game in the history of their program. I don't know if they feel that way, but there's people talking about it. So that's, perception's reality. You look at Mike Elko, to me, this is kind of his first really big game with a lot on the line as a head coach. And that doesn't mean he can't win, but I think that's an advantage Texas. And you look the last time Texas A&M had two big SEC games, South Carolina and Auburn. They lost both of them. Could mean nothing, but I think it's certainly something to think about and kind of factor into how you think a game's going to go. Man, Mike Elko is probably a great coach, or he wouldn't be where he's at. I think he's done a really good job with his team. But is he ready to play in a game like this with an SEC title berth on the line, where you got to win to keep your playoff hopes alive, where there's so much hype because it's the first matchup in 13 years with your big in-state rival? I don't know. We'll find out on Saturday night. I think despite the obvious home field advantage that Aggie's going to have and that atmosphere at Kyle Field will be insane, I think the moment's going to be too big for this Aggie team. I just think with so much stuff that's on the line, it's just kind of clearly this Aggie team is not the same type of focused team that Texas is. And maybe that isn't a factor, but I think it could be. And I think it could be enough of a factor where things get missed during the game and things just don't handle it the way you would typically, or you would if you've had experience in those types of games. I expect this game to kind of be one of those games where there's a fill 'em out period. I think the defenses are going to kind of carry the play through the early stages of this game. But in the end, man, I think Texas, just way too many ways to attack you and way too many weapons offensively. You got 4 or 5 wide receivers you can come in. They can all make plays. You got Gunnar Helm, who's having an outstanding season at tight end. You got multiple running backs. You got multiple ways to get those running backs involved. I just think Texas has way too many ways to attack you. I think the only way to neutralize that, if you're Texas A&M, is just some insane amount of pass rush. But I think Texas goes on the road. I think they secure a bid in the SEC championship game in their first year in the SEC. I think Texas takes this one 27-17 over Texas A&M down in College Station. And with that,
Mike Sherman can hardly bear to look. Justin Tucker from 40 yards out for the game. It's up. The Longhorns win it.
We told you yesterday, Big Brother's coming, Aggie. We'll be back Sunday. We'll do Drunk Sean Thoughts. Like I said, I'm trying to get a stream together for Friday, maybe. Watch Twitter for more information on that. You can find us at Horn Takes. Check us out on TikTok. Check us out on YouTube, both at Horn Takes as well. Give us a subscribe. Give us a follow. Won't cost you guys a thing, but we sure appreciate the support. You can email me at horntakespodcast@gmail.com with all your questions, comments, concerns, and criticisms. You guys have a great Thanksgiving. And then let's get ready for some Black Friday shopping, maybe. We don't do that, but maybe you do. Have fun doing that. I think the game on that has changed a little bit because people were getting crushed and getting in fights. Enjoy that if you do it. And then get ready for this game on Saturday. You guys get hooked. Be safe out there.